Welcome back, everybody. You're watching 15 Minutes of Finance, where in the next 15 minutes, I bet I can get you excited about investing. Let's do it. Okay, guys, we have, you know what? Today, I wanted to talk about AI. Okay, everybody's talking about AI, but today, I really wanted to talk about it because we got CFAs, we got CMAs, we got financial planners, we got day traders, we got everybody with opinions, analysts, news reporters. There's so many opinions out there, and I want to really zoom out and give you guys the bird's eye view of this. I think there is an inevitability with AI, okay? And I want to talk today about the AI bubble, all right? Is it a bubble? Is it not a bubble? What is the truth? What is actually happening? So we're going to dive into that. We're going to read the news. But before we do that, we have our term of the day, which is a bubble. What is a bubble, right? What is one? So in finance, a bubble is a period of rapidly rising asset prices that exceed the asset's intrinsic fundamental value, driven by speculation, over-optimism, and eventually it leads to a dramatic collapse or bust. Okay, really, realistically, a bubble is just a massive correction in a stock price, right? We remember 2001 with the tech stocks, and we remember 07, 08 with the housing crash. Both of those were bubbles, okay? We're going to really dive into how AI is different and why, even if it is a bubble, even if there is a bubble, doesn't really matter, okay? It doesn't really matter. As long as you know what you're doing and know why you're doing it, and you have some conviction, you can benefit, bubble or not, in the AI marketplace. Okay, let's read the news real quick because we do have some news, right? There's been some volatility today. It was up at the beginning and now it's down. So let's jump into this here. Okay, U.S. stocks were mixed Tuesday ahead of comments of Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell, with the Dow Jones Industrial Average and S&P 500 hitting new all-time highs and the NASDAQ Composite pulling back. The blue chip Dow advanced 0.4%. The tech-heavy NASDAQ was down 0.3%, and the benchmark S&P 500 was fractionally lower after hitting its latest record. The three indexes all recorded intraday and closing highs for a third consecutive session on Monday. Market watchers are awaiting Powell's first comments since the central bank's last cut last week for the first time this year. They cut for the first time this year. Powell is scheduled to speak at 12:35 p.m. Eastern Time at the Greater Providence Chamber of Commerce in Warwick, Rhode Island. Major stock indexes advanced yesterday on news that NVIDIA and OpenAI were partnering on a build-out of data centers, just another reason why AI is insane, and that the AI chip maker would be investing up to $100 billion in the ChatGPT developer. NVIDIA shares hit an all-time high and finished the session up 4%, although they pulled back 2% early this morning. NVIDIA partner Micron is slated to report its fiscal 2025 fourth quarter results after the bell. Shares of the memory chip maker, which have nearly doubled this year, rose 2%. Oracle was the worst performing stock in the S&P 500 with a 5% decline, a day after jumping 6% as the technology firm boosted its bets on AI by naming two new CEOs, including the former head of its cloud infrastructure business to take over from Safra Catz. Kenvue, ticker KVUE, shares rebounded 3% after dropping 7.5% yesterday to lead the S&P 500 decliners ahead of a press conference by President Donald Trump in which he said the acetaminophen, the active ingredient in Tylenol, can lead to a high risk of autism and warned pregnant women against using the medication. Boeing shares advanced 2% after the company inked a lucrative contract to make planes for Uzbekistan Airways company. President Trump called it a great deal, worth more than $8 billion in a post to his Truth Social network. Great. Absolutely great. All right, that was my Trump impression. Terrible, I know. Huge. Unbelievable. Where was I? So last month, Trump had spoken to Uzbekistan President Shavkat Mirziyoyev. Bloomberg also reported that the U.S. ambassador to China, David Perdue, said the countries were negotiating a huge Boeing plane order. Gold futures rose 1% to set another record high of more than $3,800 an ounce. West Texas Intermediate futures, the U.S. crude oil benchmark, was up 2% at 63.60 a barrel. The 10-year Treasury yield was 4.15 yesterday, and it is 4.14 today. And Bitcoin was nearly 1% higher to trade around $113,000. Okay, that's enough for today about the news, right? Also, I think maybe Costco was yesterday. I think Costco has earnings reports. It's either today or it was yesterday. I should probably know that, but we're going into a lot today. really, really excited about the NVIDIA deal. Okay, really, really excited. So let's just jump right into this. What is a bubble? What is all of this fear, FOMO, this hype, etc.? What's going on? Okay, a bubble in anything, as we described in the description earlier, is just something that exceeds its value, right? Its price goes through the roof, even though inherently when you discount the dollars back, right? So the dividend discount model, the discount cash flow pricing model, there's all these different equations that you can take a company from what they're worth or from what they're projected to make, and you can bring it back to a present value figure. Okay, that's where all of these companies who are inherently or intrinsically less valuable than their stock price, Palantir is a great example of this. That PE ratio is in the 4s or 5s right now, 500. Okay, that's ridiculously overpriced according to the metrics is how you would evaluate a company typically. Let me explain to you why none of that really matters. Okay, and I mean this as truthfully as I can say when I think back at every bubble that's ever happened. Let's just use 2001 as an example, tech stocks. Okay, Amazon is one of the big tech stocks that absolutely got destroyed by the AI bubble. All right, so if I go to Amazon stock, I already know these numbers, but I just want to make sure I'm looking at them here. So let's see. So in 1999, the stock was $4.50. Not very much, right? AI bubble happens. It goes, I mean, goodness, 30 cents is the lowest I'm seeing here. I mean, that's a many times over multiple decrease in the value of the stock. If you just go to 2005, $1.70. Okay, $1.70 from 2005. If you want to go to what it's worth now, I mean, it's $222 right now. That's like a 240,000% increase. An unbelievable amount of an increase, right? But back then there was a bubble, right? But what happened if you just held and you just waited? You got to experience all those gains. All right, a bubble inherently is something that's temporarily a pop, right? But I don't want you to think of it like you do a bubblegum pop. Okay, a bubblegum pop, when you pop it, the bubble's destroyed, it's gone. I suppose you could keep chewing and blow another bubble, but I really want you to think about it more so as like how they make swords. And I don't know why I'm using swords as the analogy, but a sword to be made really, really well, like think of like a samurai or a ninja's katana. I'm probably butchering it for all you nerds out there, but a sword gets refined in the fire. Okay, it gets folded multiple times on top of each other. And every bubble that I've seen, especially with these tech stocks, it's a refining, it's a folding of the metal, And now you look at Amazon and it's this beautiful, like unbelievably resilient sword. It's like the Valyrian steel swords in Game of Thrones. If you guys know, you know, all right? Those swords, they're the ones to have. Amazon has become that. All right, and it went through all of these refining and folding processes. Each one of those was a bubble pop, according to the people that talk about the doomsdayers, is what I would say. I guess is how I would call them. Doesn't even make any sense. Okay, it doesn't make sense because a bubble pop, when you have a good company, is temporary. All right, so that's my perspective on the 01.com bubble. Right, you can look back and say, man, you should have just held. Okay, all it would have taken from 2005 to now is 20 years of waiting, and you would have an unbelievable amount of money. Even from 2013, so what is that, 12 years of waiting. We have a client who they have $3 million worth of Amazon stock, and he worked there for 4 years, okay, from like 2008 to 2012. And now it's $3 million, right? So think about that in the concept of, do I have a good company or not? All right, so what defines a bubble? We'll give you guys a couple of things here. So you have hype, right? You have hype without the fundamentals. Palantir is a great example. A lot of people love it. They're way overpriced technically. They haven't had enough revenue to justify their share price yet. Okay, but that's not how the stock market works. The stock market is forward looking. It doesn't matter what you're doing today. It's what can you do for me later? Okay, and that is why it's always important to think, is this company actually valuable? Will it be inevitable? That seems to be a term for today. Inevitable in the future. Yeah. Okay. These things are obvious. And if you were able to see that with Amazon in 2000, right? You really, really got rewarded. Okay, so we got hype without fundamentals. We got extreme valuations, companies being valued at an immense amount, even though they have no profit, right? This is a lot of these AI companies that are very small that get bought out. They're getting bought out at a 50, 100 times multiple. And it's like, what are you talking about? They haven't made any money. How are they worth all this? Companies get rewarded very, very early for that. And then it's all on their potential. What could they become? And a lot of people, or a lot of companies, NVIDIA, Palantir even, pretty much any company that will see a competitor coming in, they'll just buy them, right? They'd rather just absorb them and grow out their business model than take on another business practice or take on another competitor, sorry. And then the biggest one, and this is where you, the retail investor, you really are important, because retail mania is so critical to bubbles popping, okay? So many people, I don't quite know how much of the stock market, the actual market cap, the investable money is retail investors, but it is 100% enough to move the needle. Retail investor is just an individual human who manages their own money, right? They don't pay an advisor. They don't go through a company. It's not an institution doing the investing. That's just what a retail investor is. Retail investors get scared so easy, and they have FOMO so easy. So they get out when they think things are going to do bad, which also lowers the price of whatever you're invested in. And then they try to get back in after all of the gains have already been made. All right, because they are scared to miss out, and so they get into these stocks at extremely high prices, and then they jump out the second that they think there's any chance of a little leak. Okay, that is what drives a bubble, is retail mania in my head. In my opinion, it's such a massive. You do yourself such a disservice by riding the momentum of the bubble waves. So I want to talk about the AI space and why it is not a bubble. And even if it is, it doesn't matter, because the investors will benefit. So the big one for me is that there's progress. Okay. The Stone Age, the Golden Age, the process of going from black and white television to color television to computers to now we can watch anything and everything on a handheld device that we carry with us everywhere. That amount of progress from one advancement to the other got exponentially quicker. It took less time each and every single time. And right now we're having a massive, massive exponential increase in our technological advancement. It doesn't really matter if it's a bubble, because AI is going to be in everything. Okay. And absolutely everything. Fast food restaurants are going to use it. Self-driving cars are going to use it. CEOs are going to use it as an assistant. Creatives are going to use it to design books, to create art, to have a second opinion, to have a think tank. It is going to be absolutely everywhere. All right. And even if there is a bubble pop, I want you to really think about that being a cheaper price for you to get a really great company. So what do you do as an investor to be able to make sure you take advantage of all this, right? And again, I'm supposed to say this is not financial advice. This is strictly education, in my opinion. But really go think about this later. I promise you, you will be thankful you did. The big seven, right? The Mag 7, every single one of them is investing hundreds of billions of dollars, between all of them, trillions of money, R&D, research and development, into AI. They're buying AI companies. NVIDIA just dumped $100 billion into OpenAI. That's ChatGPT for those of you. And I don't see how, even if there is a bubble and prices get sliced right in half, that you won't benefit from saying, oh, I should probably get some more. This is Amazon at $5. All right. I don't know how you don't see that. Right. And it is possible that there is a bubble popping moment, but it's the refining of the sword. And I really want you to view it that way. So now why do I think it isn't a bubble technically? Because all of the big money is going into this. And the big money is a really good sign of what's going to happen. Okay. Now they might not make profit for 5 years, but man, the second they start making profit, it is going to be efficient. Every single company that adopts and invests in these AIs, this AI infrastructure, their gross profit margin, how efficiently they can make money, will increase. Okay, it will increase. And once you get more efficient at making money, it gets a lot easier to make more money and more money and more money. And I think you have to be early, right? And this is why we were in on Palantir and NVIDIA years ago, right? The quantum computing is that now. I don't quite know enough about quantum computing to have a full-on investment conversation, but quantum computing can do things in 1 second that regular computers, it takes them a lifetime to do. Okay, so there is value in that once we understand more about it. But the AI infrastructure, even if it is a bubble, it's going to refine itself, and you're going to get to the point where eventually it is that Valyrian steel sword. And you're going to be there's only like 12 of them in the whole show. Only 12 of those swords. You know how many swords you see throughout the whole every season? It's probably thousands of swords, right? But there's only like 12 of them, 10 or 12 of them. Don't quote me on that. But there's very, very few, right? And it's the same thing with investing. There's only so many of these extremely rare, valuable companies. And with the AI space, I think the safest play is not to be taking risks and gambles on all these really small companies. I think that's very dangerous, right? And I did do it with Palantir technically, but there was a lot of evidence that they were going to become a Valyrian steel sword company. They were going to become just this massive player, and they are, right? They just got a $1 billion deal with the UK, right? There's evidence for these things, and I want you to be encouraged when they talk about a market bubble, because as long as you can say, hey, I've got time, I want a dollar cost average into these positions, I'm not really too worried. I know there's fluctuations in the market. It's cyclical. There's going to be drops. The S&P 500 drops 5 to 10% like 5 times a year, okay? I want you to think about it as long-term as you possibly can and get good companies. You don't need to take risks. You can, but you don't need to take risks on these little itty-bitty maybes, right? Like technically, Big Bear AI, it's a $6 stock right now. You don't need to take that risk, but I see things in Big Bear that are going to be, they have potential. They have massive potential. But a lot of these AI companies, they want to build something and then get bought, right? They have no interest in actually being a big player in the space. All right, or being an independent player. It's much easier to build something and then sell it than it is to compete with NVIDIA, Palantir, any of these companies in any sector that get AI. It's way cooler to be like, yep, I just sold my company for $150 million. It's way better to do that. Okay, guys, that's it for today. As always, invest early, invest often. We'll see you next time.